You're a startup founder. You think your product is amazing and feel like more people should be buying, but the road is long and slow. It feels like you're stuck. There's always one thing I ask startup founders. Have you talked to your customers? They almost always say, heck yes, we talk to our customers all the time. But what I find is they're either selling or trying to improve their product. These are not customer-focused conversations. If we can get curious about our customers, then we can uncover critical insights that will help us build to the next round. I'm Anna Firmenov, and welcome to Building with Buyers, a show about startup growth where I'll explore how customers help startups build to the next round. Thank you for joining me. Natalie Marcotullio is the head of growth and ops at Navattic. And I also have Raman Khanna here. He is the growth lead at Navattic. So it's the three of us today, which is very exciting. Natalie has been on the show before, so check out episode 139 and also episode 180. So it's your round 3 for you, Natalie. But Raman, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you. A little bit about Navattic. Navattic makes buying easier with interactive demos so that prospects get hands-on product access without having to schedule a sales call, which is amazing, right? You can embed them on your website, share in your sales cycle, and send in emails. And 20,000 interactive demos have been built so far with Navattic, which just blows my mind. Seed funded. First of all, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So since 2020, you've been a sales-led company, and plans have been around like 500 a month to start. And you just released a product-led motion, one interactive demo free forever, which, by the way, I am so excited that you did that. I will be taking part in building out a free interactive demo for a client. So I think you've just opened up a lot of opportunity for folks that maybe weren't considering Navattic, and now they're definitely considering Navattic. So I think this is really smart way to go. You started sales-led, then you went product-led, because with PLG, you're really relying on the product to get the customer to see the value. And so there's a lot of risk involved there. And some of the startup founders that I talk to, when I meet with them and they show me the experience and it starts with PLG, I'm like, oh, so how's that going for you? And they start telling me about all the challenges with that. We're having drop off, right? They're not converting. And so it pains my soul to hear things like that, because I almost feel like you need to handhold and then build for the non-hand-holding experience, which is what you guys did. So I think this is definitely the right way to go. So let's talk about this a bit more. Why did you decide to go product-led? Let's start there.
A good question you're mentioning, you talk to founders and sometimes you're like, I don't know about this product-led experience for you. A good question to ask yourself is like, realistically, how easy is it for someone to get up and running with your product on their own? And then two, like, what are the benefits of going product-led versus sales-led? So for us, from the very beginning of Navattic, I've just thought like product-led makes a lot of sense. Interactive demos are something that relatively is quick and easy to go up, get running, and see value from. There are a lot of different use cases. I think PLG tends to work better when you have maybe like a larger TAM or a lot of people who can use it. And then we get a lot of value from there being more demos out there, right? The more demos out in the world, even if they're free, more people see demos or think that's cool and then want to try one. So for all those reasons, I've always sort of thought Navattic would be a good candidate for PLG. But it took a little bit for our product to get there and also for our team to get there. So from the product's perspective, basically the way Navattic works is we clone software to create these interactive demos. And it just took a while for us to get to a point where that worked pretty much out of the box. It would always work, but take a little bit of like tinkering up front, especially for newer customers. So it's really nice to be able to handhold them through it. So once the product got in a good state, and then also the team and the process. I was a one-person marketing team for most of the time at Navattic. Then Raman joined, which was incredible, and add someone to actually own this PLG process. And I think like number one takeaway for anyone is you really need someone who could be a dedicated owner for it, because it took us a long time to actually go from like, hey, let's launch PLG to actually executing on it.
Yeah, Raman, we're so happy to have you at Navattic.
just to add to that, I think Natalie spoke to a lot of like generally why Navattic was a good candidate for PLG, and similar to what you're saying, like sounds like you're going to be using Navattic. I think just opened the door to more people. It expanded our user base. It fed our most powerful growth loop, which was like Natalie said, seeing powered by Navattic. But then specifically why in the last year we went PLG, I think we were seeing a lot of value, like growth from our sales led motion, but we started to notice some cracks. Like prospects kept telling us over and over again that they wanted to try the product first, and they really wanted to prove value to their team and secure budgets, especially as budgets started to shrink and it started to get a little bit harder to get buy-in. So that kind of momentum made it feel like the right moment for us to take the leap into PLG and start to think about how to add a free tier.
So tell me why you decided to go freemium versus free trial, because a lot of companies out there are doing free trial. I've done that. I did the free trial, the 14-day free trial. Why did you guys decide to go full freemium?
I think it was definitely something we spent a lot of time thinking through. So this was definitely like the primary decision we made when we like knew we wanted to do some sort of free tier. And the way we thought about it was a free trial we knew would like be time bound. It'd be like a really natural conversion point and like people would be able to convert. But freemium, on the other hand, people would be able to build a demo, share a demo. There wouldn't be the pressure of like a ticking time clock. But then also it'd have this like extra added benefit that Natalie touched on where we'd expand our user base, we'd supercharge this growth loop of more demos in the world, people seeing powered by Navattic. And sort of this third reason of we'd get a ton of valuable data to improve the product experience. So we just have a lot more users being in Navattic. We'd see where drop-off points were, we'd see where friction was, and we'd be able to overall improve the product experience. So for all of those reasons, it just started to make sense that like freemium was the way to go.
Does the free trial kind of requires you to make a decision, and it pushes you to be like, well, do I want it or not? In whatever time frame, whether that's 14 days or 30 days. And you guys didn't want that. You just wanted it to like the goal wasn't to convert. I think your goal with freemium is to spread Navattic. Tell me more about the steps that you took to get there, kind of high level. What did you do first? Then what did you have to do, right? Because there are, I'm sure, a lot of steps. And then we'll talk about maybe some stumbles and fixing some of those, but take me through some of the main steps you took.
One of the things that was interesting was it definitely took a lot of buy-in to go PLG. Like there was definitely pushback from our sales and CS team. So the first step was we organized around a $50 per month plan, which felt like a good compromise. It was a little bit of a lower barrier to entry without us fully committing to a freemium motion. So we showed that to a percentage of our traffic. And from there, we like had people actually using the product. People were paying to be in the product. And we got a lot of really good data of like where people were dropping off, why people weren't activating. And there was still like a little bit of buy-in from them because they had put down their credit card. And during that time, we were able to like organize, and Natalie and I from the growth side, we worked with the product team and the sales team and the engineering team to put together this internal working group, like this tiger team of people that were owning starter, owning the freemium tier, and were able to really focus on the user experience. And then that was sort of the third step of like really iterating on the onboarding experience. We spent a lot of time in post-hog recordings. We looked at funnel drop-off data and improved our activation experience. Because when we started, we had 5% of people activating, and obviously not a great starting point. So we had to figure out really quickly, like, how can we make this a better experience and like make it feel more intuitive and put people on a path to activation and to upsell eventually. And then from there, it was then starting to introduce our free tier. We launched that in a really phased way. So we started with a small percentage of traffic seeing freemium. We were able to sales build a playbook without having to have like a flood of freemium leads. And from our side, we could look at data, see how people were interacting with the product and make improvements. So that's like at a really high level of how we launched, but can also go into some more detail there.
What was the reason why there was only a 5% activation? What was going on there?
Yeah, I'd say it was a couple of things. I think the main reason is we noticed, I guess I'll start with our onboarding. So we ran some winter testing to start, and people found our old experience, like some of the terms that kept coming up were it's startling, it's bare, not great things to hear, but they were right because we just hadn't built an onboarding experience that was meant for new users. It was for our existing customers. So that was the first thing we focused on improving is like, how can we get a really nice onboarding experience that sets you up well for being in the product? And then when people were in the product, we looked at a lot of data and we saw people were just clicking into a bunch of different tabs. It wasn't clear what their next step was. And so we had to think about how to solve for that big problem. And so that was like a combination of adding a setup guide and creating a more intuitive flow. So we were dropping people into the next step versus having them have to figure it out. And so, yeah, I think those are the two big things we had to solve for first.
This is music to my ears because I will be going into that experience. And the fact that I've kind of, after all of this has happened and you've learned a lot and kind of improved some of that, I'm really excited to check it out. And from what I understand, going into build your own interactive demo, it could take like how long? A couple hours, a few hours, same day, right? You can basically sign up, put it together, and same day launch.
I'd say like it really could take 20 minutes. The hardest part we always say is just like figuring out the story you want to tell. And if you know that in advance, the actual taking captures, you're usually like maybe taking captures of like 6 or 7 screens of your product, writing out. We recommend it only be like 10 to 15 steps. So really the hard part isn't putting it together. It's figuring out internally what story do we want to tell, what parts of the product, making sure we have clean data, environment access. So we definitely see plenty of our users who sign up within first 30 minutes, hours, we'll start creating a demo and can even have it published within a few days.
Yeah. What is the freemium experience? How is it different from paid? What do people need to pay for then in order to get? What are they not getting in the free plan?
The biggest thing is really just demos. So we saw that's part of the reason we did that $50 a month plan, as Raman mentioned. Really, we wanted to validate like what is the upsell lever? And part of it is it's still a very product-led sales approach. So that's how we're getting data around, okay, what is that upsell lever? What are people willing to pay us for? Even if they're not necessarily upgrading an app, we're still trying to get them in a conversation to get some of those learnings. But yeah, we found time and time again, people would need just one demo to validate, does it work for us? Maybe they would just need to see internally, like create one and show their boss and say, look how cool this looks. And that would be enough to validate. Sometimes they need to put it on their website and see conversions or traffic. And the hope is once they see that one demo have success, they then recognize, okay, I can go use this for ads. I can use this in my sales cycle. I can use this for this new feature launch we're doing. There are a lot of different ways I am going to need more than just one demo. On top of that, integrations is a big one. I think this is probably for a lot of PLG experts have known like integrations tend to create a lot of support time, can be a lot more complex, can mean longer activation time. So for us, integrations, we decided to put on the higher plan just because we know that often involves sort of like custom setup.
Is it like no integration? Is just here's your interactive demo and we don't integrate until you pay?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that right? Okay, cool. Good to know. Any other stumbles that you didn't cover? Anything big that came up that was kind of surprising and you're like, oh, shoot, guys, if we were to do this again, we would do it differently next time?
I would say maybe not a stumble, but something initially we had to really figure out that maybe we weren't expecting was how much it involved the whole company. But it became super clear like how cross-functional it was. We had to figure out really early like how to work with the product team so that we could partner with them in the best way and work with the way that they work in the best way and work with our sales team and figure out what the playbook looked like, check in with them, give feedback, make sure that they felt part of setting the strategy and that we were working together as teams and as partners. So yeah, I would say it's just like getting the whole company aligned. And then other than that, I think just like our routing was something we had to really figure out. It's funny because I think there were a lot of like, they talk about the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. There were a ton of these like unknown unknowns. And one of those big ones was like, I think we all thought routing would be easier than it was. Figuring out how to route people, how to route these leads, and then even just like tactically how that worked and setting it up. We use like a huge Zapier that does it right now. So that part was a stumble or something that was definitely like a little challenging.
How did you route leads or did you route, or what was your like before you fixed that process? What was your process before? What do you do with people that get into the freemium flow?
So right now it's based on like firmographic. That's how we do routing. So based on company size, essentially, we route essentially all PQLs that are over a certain company size to a sales rep. Over time, I think that's probably something that'll evolve. But for now, it's just based on firmographics.
Great. And then sales takes over and like starts to build that relationship, I imagine. It's kind of a helpful partner
Yeah.
because it's a freemium user, right? They have to figure everything out themselves.
And that's probably something else that we had to figure out really quickly is like we found that PQLs really prefer obviously to explore independently and like they're not immediately ready to talk to sales. So our sales team is really great and they were able to get like a lot more of a consultative approach. And it's even to the point where like Zoe from our sales team, she organized a webinar like totally led by the sales team. So they're taking a much more consultative approach and helping get free users activated and talking to the sales team that way.
I almost feel like I might need to attend a webinar, but let's see how far I go maybe I can just do it myself. What was your launch plan? You launched freemium, like you learned a lot, you took those steps, and then it was time to like let everyone know. What did you do?
I can start touching on this. Really, the biggest thing that I focus in a lot of my marketing, go back and listen to the other episodes and you'll hear all about this, but really trying to focus on like messaging that is valuable to our audience, not just like, hey, we have freemium now, we're amazing, come check us out. Because I've seen a lot of those announcement posts, which are great and it's awesome that you offer freemium. But we also know our audience as marketers, go to market leaders, like they look for something different. So we're really trying to think like, how could we help those who are maybe also thinking about going PLG or freemium? We met a lot of people during this process who were in a similar boat to us, who were sales led, thinking about PLG, didn't know when was the right time or how to make these decisions. So we decided to do stuff like exactly this podcast, just tell our story. Because we knew if we told our story of why did we launch freemium, how did we do it ourselves, what's involved in the freemium decision-making process, it would, one, tell the story that we now have a freemium plan. Even in this whole conversation, we were talking about our freemium plan, but two, just create some positive affinity with our brand and our audience because they're like, oh, this is actual really helpful information. It's interesting. I'm curious how they did this process, not just to know that they have a freemium plan. So really was all focused around telling the story through LinkedIn. That was a big one that we launched on, doing newsletters, podcasts like this. And we've been continuing it for the next like 3 months. We did do a big like 2-week launch campaign on LinkedIn where we told a few different aspects of our PLG story. But now we're continuing to do it, things like this, just really focusing on different parts of the funnel and also sharing new things we learned, right? Just because we launched doesn't mean that the process is over. We are continually improving the PLG experience.
That's why I love you guys. You're so thoughtful about your marketing. And it's not just, hey, we have a free plan now, you should do it. But I think, Natalie, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to content, you're always thinking about, is this valuable and is this different? Did I hit that right?
Basically, I sometimes say unique and valuable.
Unique and valuable.
Exactly that. And we knew there wasn't much content out there about sales-led companies transitioning to PLG. There was a lot out there about existing PLG companies. And then valuable, yeah, I think anyone in the audience, whether they're deciding to go PLG or not, even us explaining why we did it might help them be like, wait, none of those values would apply to me. Maybe we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's to stop people from doing it too. That's just as important. So how many demos have been built on the free plan and what percent have converted to paid? And I'd love to hear what you think about these numbers too. Is it good? Well, first, just share the numbers.
We've had around 2,500 starter users in workspaces, and I think we've had like around 800 demos created in the last few months. The numbers we're paying most attention to is like activation and upgrade. I think those are what we're really focused on. So activation, like I mentioned, we started at a 5% activation rate and we're closer to a 33% activation rate today, which we're pretty happy about. I think PLG benchmarks, it seems like that fits into like a good number, but I think our goal is to just obviously, like Natalie said, continuing to optimize that. And then our upgrade, we started at like a 1 to 2% upgrade rate. And our sales team was able to really figure out a playbook that worked. And like I said, take a lot more of a consultative approach. And we've been able to bring that upgrade rate up to 5%. And our goal is to get that in that like 5 to 10% range over the next few quarters.
And it also sounds like with these interactive demos being shared, so you're getting a lot of folks looking more than once, right? Coming back to it. I think you separately, you kind of shared like the unique views, the internal shares. There's a lot of views happening. So do you want to speak to that a little bit more and help explain that?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. In terms of views, that's sort of how we think about it is like, what are internal views versus external views? So in these dashboards we look at, it's like how many people are getting 2+ unique demo visitors. And like to us, that's an indicator that they're sharing it internally. We've noticed a lot of people upgrade, they build out a demo, they share it with their team, they get buy-in, and then they raise their hand to upgrade. And then on the other side, it's sort of like that brand impact that Natalie was mentioning, where people are posting it on their websites or they're embedding it on their homepage or they're using it in their email campaigns. And that's when it's starting to get like 10+ views on a demo. So we track that as well. Are they feeding that powered by Navattic growth loop?
Yeah, that's really cool. What else have you learned since launch that I didn't ask about that you think is important to share?
One thing I wanted to touch on, because I heard from other PLG leaders, is that like at the beginning of PLG, you are starting from scratch. So it might hurt your numbers a little bit. We saw a little bit of a decline as far as MQLs and pipeline because we obviously have this new free motion that we're still building out and haven't optimized yet. It's like starting your sales motion all again. So what I'd say is just like be patient. And this is something that thankfully Raman bared with me when I had a little bit of a freak out in, I think it was like August, a few weeks before launch, because I don't think we fully figured out our product-led sales motion, but we still had to launch. So I think just like trusting your long-term play and knowing of like, it might hurt a little bit in the short term, but the goal is that it will balance out and then increase the number of leads you get in the long term. So all that being said, anyone who recently launched PLG, don't freak out if you're seeing a slight hit. Obviously, if it's for months and months on end, maybe look into that, but it's going to take time to figure out this new motion.
Is that because what's happening is the people that were going down your sales-led track now switched over and they're going down your PLG track, and it's just a different flow? They're going down a different track. So instead of talking to the sales team for a few months, they might be using the product by themselves without sales, but then getting to converting by themselves maybe into a sale anyway.
Exactly. And when you first launch, you might not know the correct features to gate. So you might have lower conversion rates because you didn't gate the right stuff, or you might not know the right messaging to outreach these people. So at first, you're probably going to have lower conversion rates on your free plan. But hopefully, if you get better at that, keep improving the product, keep improving your sales-led motion or product-led sales motion, that will increase.
Awesome. Okay, this has been super useful for me. I'm sure the founders listening to the show, super useful for anybody that's really thinking about whether or not to go this route. If you're sales-led, going product-led. If you're product-led, well, there's still a lot that you can learn from this conversation if you're starting from that track. But I super appreciate you guys. Natalie, you can find her on LinkedIn, Natalie Marcotullio. I'll include the link in the show notes. Raman, also on LinkedIn, Raman Khanna. And Navattic, if you want to visit Navattic, you should visit navattic.com. And thank you. You both are a pleasure to talk to. I think that there's going to be a lot of value from this episode. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Building with Buyers. New episodes drop weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, Anna Furmanov. Visit my website to learn more about how to turn customer insights into positioning and messaging your buyers will understand. FurmanovMarketing.com. And don't forget to leave a review if you're loving the show.